transition to live on Twitch now. So if anyone's watching on Twitch, welcome. We are just streaming a impromptu intro to D&D and TTRPGs in general, because we had a massive influx of people on our Discord. So we were like, hey, you guys need a crash course, and we are here for it. Um, People who are joining the call, just so you know, this is being streamed to Twitch, but none of your identities or anything are being streamed. It's just the handle. Um, and yeah, Indrani will be taking your questions, and I'll chime in when I can. So
Yeah.
so
I am uh screen sharing um
yes,
thing. So if you guys can open that, that's gonna be the presentation. Shout out to Ira who is here with us. Thank
you
you
haven't
for
started
creating
your
this. I really appreciate it, friend.
Indrani. Your screen share isn't showing just right now.
I can see it. It's
Oh,
visible.
can you see my stream? Oh, it should be. Okay.
Oh, okay. Odd. Let me check what's going on.
Okay, folks can see it. Uh, so the way this is gonna work. Also, hi everybody. My name is Indrani. My pronouns are she, they. So you can use she, her, or they, them. Both are fine. We're gonna do a quick introduction to what, and we're also gonna talk about TTRPGs in general and what um like other TTRPGs are like, and some additional things around playing tabletop role-playing games. But the very first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go over what is known as safety tools. Uh, Unlike video games or multiplayer games or any sort of digital games, tabletop role playing games are very what's the word? Personal, right? It's a very social game. You're talking directly to each other, and it means that you're interacting with people who have their own, history and background and whatnot, which means that you might not know everything about their lived experiences. Like the Desi and Dragons quest board. I'm going to drop a link to that in here as well, um, in the chat. So if you click on it, it's going to take you to our wiki. Safety tools are basically ways for us to make sure that everybody at the table feels safe and not stressed, or just make sure that they're having fun, right? There's different kinds of safety tools that you can use, and I'll cover them quickly, but the wiki has an in depth guide on what types of safety tools there are and how to use them. But the basic principle is that consent is important, right? So if you're at a game, and for example, some people don't like seeing animal abuse in games, they don't want pets to be hurt or something, and that's and if you're using a safety tool, that means that everybody at the table is aware of that and knows not to broach that subject. So basically it makes sure that uh, everybody is consenting to what's happening at the table, and um, everybody feels it also includes the dungeon master or the game master. I would recommend going through the entire wiki when you have the time. It's not very long. And shout out to Lore Garden, aka Shubham, and 8-Bit Logic, who is our mod. But yeah, those are safety tools. Some of the most
Quick,
basic safety tools. Yeah.
sorry, quick
That
time. Is everyone able to hear Indrani fine? Everyone able to?
you can tell me in
There's a
chat
slight
and I'll
lag.
bump up my gain
No, it's not the. It's the
if
internet thing, because
that's
there's
a
a lot of
problem.
people on the stream. So I'm just going to reduce the
Eh,
rate on this.
Oh, I'm lagging a bit.
But that's unavoidable. There's just a lot of people. Just go slow. Basically, just go
Sure,
slow, and that's
sure,
all you
sure.
can.
We'll fix that. Technical issues. Yeah.
All right, carry on. Sorry for interrupt.
What is X cards? It's basically just an sheet of paper with X that says X on it. And anytime you see someone say something or do something that you're like, oh, I don't know if this is comfortable, you hold up your X card and the game asks, should we like just skim over this? That way you're basically like, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation. Am I still is my audio still
Yeah,
bad?
apparently you're lagging. I'm not. An odd issue. It might be because you're also video streaming. Is your net fine? Is it?
What I can do is I can, maybe this might help. Is this better?
Uh,
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, like my ping is super high.
uh, leave and rejoin.
Give me one sec. I will fix this.
All right. While Indrani leaves and rejoins. Aha, it's my time to take over. Okay, so quickly, safety tools is where we were at. We were talking about X cards. X cards is a very kind of on the go solve that you could, which is say you're in the middle of a game and the game's like, turn a corner and you dead animal. Like, oh wait, you know what? I did realize, but I'm not okay. You just raise an X card or you just hold your fingers up or say, okay, can we skip that? And essentially, everyone at the table like, skip ahead or retcon and be like, oh, you know what? That never happened. And there's two parts to this that are important. Indrani's back. I'm going to hand it over to her in a second. I'm just going to
No.
kind of
Go on,
yeah.
go on. Please keep
There's
talking.
two parts to this. One, you don't ever argue about what is okay or not okay. Someone says, hey, this is skip that. There's no debate that happens that, oh, but you know, it's not that bad. Nope. They asked you to skip it, just skip it. Okay. And the second part is that it can change at any point. Some point, say if someone was okay with something, but now they're not. Again, don't be like, oh, but you were okay with it a week ago. If they're not okay with it now, it's fine. Your game won't be better or worse for forcing that issue. It will be worse for forcing. It will be better for making sure that everyone feels. And it might seem a bit strange that we are leading the conversation with safety tools because, like Indrani said, all tabletop games and are very social interactions with out of yourself, play and have fun and interact very actively. It can sometimes get touchy. It's always good to have these tools that you right. Okay, so that's
Yep.
X cards. Indrani, do you want to talk about the lines and rails? Because should I carry on?
Yeah. So the second part, I turned my video off. I don't know if that helps.
Try.
But continue while I fix my internet, please.
Okay, so the other thing to talk about, X cards is one safety tool. There are many others. Again, it's there on the.
Lines and Wales is. Oh,
All right. While Danny, are you talking or are you not
oh,
talking?
my internet is still being annoying.
Okay, let
You
me just
talk.
handle
It's
this
all
and
good.
then ping me when you're ready. Yeah, so I'll carry on for now. Okay, so basically, I'm cutting. Um, Lines and Veils is the second safety tool that you can use. Lines and Veils is essentially uh, two things. Lines are hard boundaries that are not okay to break. Right? So, um, for example, uh, maybe you just are really terrified of spiders, okay, and that's a line. So you put that down before the game, and you're like, a line for me is spiders. I don't want spiders in my game. Talk about it, whatever. It doesn't come up in any way. You don't try to hint at a spider. You just Wales, and Whale spelled VIL, is where it's okay to essentially hint at it but not get into graphic detail. So if spiders were a whale, then you would essentially you see six-legged being run across the road from you. But that doesn't mean that you need to go ahead and fight it. In fact, that's something what you won't get into graphic interaction. Um, essentially that's lines and veils. And there's a good little tool that we have posted. And so this is there if you go whenever you see a game over here, say in the game announcement thing, you will always see the DM specify what safety tools are going to be used, whether it's X cards or lines and veils. If you don't see something like that, let us know because it's mandatory safety tool server. And this is because we essentially want you are playing on this server safe and well. You're able to communicate when you're not comfortable, because that's the tough part. The tough part is actually being able to go, that wasn't working for me, can we not do that? It's very hard because you suddenly like, I don't want to be awkward, I don't want to stop the game. But if there's already a tool in place, then that's just part of the game. It's how you create in the game. Make sure there's a safety tool. And again, Wiki has. Rani, can you take us to the next slide? Because I don't know what's in this presentation. Is there a next slide, please? Or I'll just start talking about D&D. All right. I don't know if Indrani can hear me. So that's fine. Let's go back. Okay, so now that you're all here because you obviously wanted to play D&D, so let's talk about that. Yes, let's oh yeah, by the way, any questions about safety tools so far? After this I'll talk about D&D. I'll talk about like what the game is about, how to play it. We'll get into that, but any questions about safety tools? Good point, Ari. And if you guys are confused as to where to chat, there's a chat that's in the video. You can chat over there. Oh sure, I can go X cards again. So the best example I can do, I'll say you're playing a game of, I don't know, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And while you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, what happens is, as you know, what's it? Someone describes, you've not mentioned this in your lines and veils, but someone just randomly describes dead animal or spiders, and you realize while you're playing that you're not okay with spiders. You don't want to get into a combat with a spider, or you don't want to interact with one. So all you do is you hold up at this point, hold up X, or you can, if you don't have a card, you can just literally do X, or you can even say X card. And basically what happens is the game goes, okay, what was the issue? The spiders. The GM, the game master or the dungeon master, goes, all right, we'll skip it. There's no spiders. It's snakes. Is everyone okay with snakes? Great, let's fight snakes. Right? So it's things like that. Now, obviously, it won't always be a spider. It might be just a scene where maybe there is a very abusive noble, and you don't want to deal with nobility being abusive. And so you like X card, specify that, and we'll come back to this a bit more because I think the more you understand the game, you can see why it's relevant. But for now, I think that should at least give you how it works. To see it in play, we'll get to it. All right. Any
Can
other
you guys
questions?
hear me? Is this better?
Yes. I can hear
Clearer?
you.
Okay, cool. I am going to. All right. Try to screen share. If it doesn't work, I'll just talk. Sorry about this.
I think you just have bad net.
Can you guys see my screen? And am I still audible and clear?
Your screen is here, and you are currently on.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about safety tools, I'm gonna jump into the meat of things, which is Dungeons and Dragons. What is the game? I love this presentation. The easiest way to describe D&D is a collaborative storytelling. It's basically the dungeon master sets the scene and you react to the scene with other people, right? It's a way of creating one story but with like multiple people. And there's two main elements of D&D, which is role playing and combat. Combat is what uses mechanics, right? That's where you're hitting creatures, you're rolling your attacks, and you're doing all the mechanical stuff. And the role playing is simply the storytelling side of things, which is where you are, talking to other people, or you are uh, deceiving them, or you are like, you know, pleading your case to the king or something like that. This doesn't use like numbers specifically for gauging hits and stuff, but it's just like you're telling a story and your DM is responding to it.
Do you want to give an
Um,
example that we can maybe?
yeah. Do you want to give me a.
All right. So, story role play. This is role playing, right? Let's take your character, which is from our game that we've been, which is Amara, and let's say you've arrived at a bar because Falk was like, "Be a grumpy bartender." I can be a grumpy bartender. So, all right. You see as you enter a conventional inn, warm candles. There's a fire burning. Many different people in the inn. There's dwarves, gnomes, elves. They're all kind of busy with their ale. Uh, a burly, bearded, bald, basically me, but grumpier man is standing at the inn at the bar, cleaning a mug that just never seems like it's going to get clean. Amara, what do you do?
I'm going to walk over to the bartender and say, "Good sir, can I have a flask of ale, please?" And I put my own flask down on the table so he can fill it up.
Why do you have your own flask?
Well, it just looks like you've been trying to clean this for so long and it doesn't seem
Are
to
you
get any
insulting my
cleaner.
establishment?
No, I'm sorry. Here's 5 silver
For insulting my establishment?
for a flask of ale.
It's a gold for a flask of ale now.
Oh, come on. I didn't mean to insult you. I just have a thing. It's a tick.
Roll deception. And so at this point, what I'm essentially doing, say in D would be asking roll deception to lie because they don't actually have, at least as far as I know. And so they'll roll, and if they roll high enough, then the bartender will be like, "Fine, I'll give it to you for 5 silver." They roll low, roll low. They'll be like, "Nah, you're still gonna have to pay 1 gold." Then the game. So that's the role play side of it. Kind.
Okay, combat. I pissed this barkeep off so much that he wants to now beat my ass. Okay? This is when Shubham is going to ask me to roll initiative. And that's basically the combat side of things. We'll go into detail later. But this is the part where I take out my wizard staff and I cast a fireball. And I set his entire establishment on fire if I roll high enough. And the game goes on. So we'll cover combat later, but I hope that gives you an idea of what role playing looks like. It's basically social
There's
situations. Yeah,
also
go
a
on.
third side, which I don't know if there's a side, but exploration, which role
Oh
playing.
yeah.
So that's the other thing is sometimes you're not interacting with a person, which would be role play, or person being anything. Creature, it could be a sentient armor, any of that. You could be interacting with other people who are playing. All of that's role play. When you're fighting, that's obvious. The third pillar, which is often in a lot of games, is exploration, where you might be like, "Oh, you're in an abandoned castle. There are many, many rooms right in front of you, and all of them look locked." Your players are like, "We want treasure. Let's open every one of the doors." You're going to open the door, and then the DM's going to describe what's in there. Maybe you run into a combat, or maybe you run into like a trapped person. Maybe you just find a fun treasure full of gold, and right. So that's kind of exploration. How every tabletop role playing game handles this is based on the game. Some value role play more, some value combat more, some are all about exploration, some juggle all three. So yeah, it can go anywhere.
Cool. We kind of just went over this, but the people involved in the game are the dungeon master, the person who sets the scene, who is basically the world, who is basically God. uh, they're the good people, they're the bad people, they're the trees, the glass, the sand, everything in the world that is not you is the dungeon master. They're the ones who will give you choices. They're the ones who will give you a plot hook. And most of you, will be players. The term for folks like us is PCs, which is player characters, right? Anybody who's not the dungeon master is a player character. You are the people who will react to the world, who will react to the good people, the bad people. The choices that you make will influence the world, but the world will present you with choices. And when the DM and the players come together, that's when the story moves forward. The dice are honestly just a tool for keeping things interesting. Like there is no like what's the fun in a story if you already know how exactly how it's gonna go, right? The element of chance is what keeps it fun. And that's where the D20s and the D6s and all the dice come in. Speaking of dice, I just smacked my hand against my computer. Never mind. So there is in D&D, you use 7 types of dice. The most important one is the D20, which is a 20-sided die and rolls from obviously 1 to 20. There are others, D4, D6, D8, D10, D100, D12, but they're all used for like more niche purposes. But primarily when you're playing D&D 5e, you are going to be using the D20. Now, the way this works is that, especially in D&D, other games treat it differently, but the higher you roll, usually is the better. On a D20, if you roll a natural 20, in most situations, that means that you've critically succeeded. It's a natural 20, it's a critical success, which means if I was trying to open a really difficult, no, if I was trying to like attack this monster or this barkeep from earlier, and I rolled a natural 20, that means I would do a lot of damage, far more than I would have been able to do if it was not a natural 20. And if I roll a natural 1, that means I critically fail. Like whatever I was trying to do does not work, and sometimes there's negative consequences to it as well. But you're not always rolling 1 or 20. There's like 18 no 16 numbers, no 18 numbers between. I'm bad at math. What happens when you roll those? The DM sets what is known as the difficulty class or the DC, right? Not all things require you to be really good at something. Sometimes the DC class of 10 means that if you roll above a 10, that means you've succeeded, right? Sometimes the DC class can be higher or lower, but the point is you can roll different numbers on the dice and get away with it. You don't always have to like aim for the highest, though it is better.
If can I just chime in?
Yeah, please don't
Okay.
ask.
If to simplify this, because it's a bit overwhelming when there's 10 dice and whatever. Simple part is try to roll high and then add whatever is the relevant number. Roll high and add that whatever number that you're fine. Roll below that, you fail that, and then there's a different outcome. That's the easy, and that's what almost every try roll higher or lower than whatever number.
Shubhu, can you turn off your video? I know that makes our stream a little less interesting, but maybe that lets more people join.
Oh, sure. The voice is not an issue anymore.
Oh, I see more people joining. Is it working? Let us know, but we are going to keep going. Oh, great. Okay. More people can join. Awesome. Sorry about that, folks. Welcome. So that's DICE. And don't worry if you missed this. We will share the whole presentation along with some other tools to get started.
As well as this recording, Ron will be.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be recorded, so you can catch it later. All right. So dice. The D20 is the most important, and the others are used for different purposes based on what character you're playing, like what class, and we'll come to that. Okay. Character creation. That was a great segment. Not really, but yeah, for you to exist in the world your DM has created for you, you have to play somebody. And that's where character creation comes in. I mean, I could be Indrani in real life, but in Shubham's world, I am Amara, a really powerful wizard who happens to be the reincarnation of a god of magic, and that's cool. But how do I put that into mechanics? That's where we pick four different elements. The two main ones are your class and I would say background. So your class is what lets you pick your profession or your role, right? For example, a cleric is a healer, right? They are, people who draw from divine beings and are able to use that divine energy to heal somebody who's injured or to also like kick someone's ass if they wanted to. A bard is a really good artist, right? They are singers, they are dancers, they're musicians, they're storytellers, they're poets, anything. And they use their power of creating art to entrance people, to do insane magic, like feats of magic. A fighter doesn't give a shit about magic. A fighter is like, I'm just gonna take my sword and I'm just gonna take my shield and I'm just gonna do my thing. Right? You can be whoever you want, but your class defines the kind of abilities and the kind of things you're good at. That's what your class will help you define.
I just feel like
Your
you really underrepresented fighters over there. That's not
I'm
that's a
sorry.
very
I
wizard player talking.
all
Okay.
right, all right, all
So
right.
so clerics, they can use different people can use magic. Fighters can also use magic, but they're not casters. Their job isn't to cast spells. They're martial masters, right? So if you've ever seen, like, if you want to play someone who's just really good at using sword and multiple different weapons and controlling the battlefield, that's a fighter. Wizard is about casting magic like Gandalf or one from Harry Potter. That's wizards, right? Technically, Harry Potter people. Okay, Indrani.
Yes, there's different classes, and we'll cover those. Like, I'll have a toolkit in which you can learn all about the classes. Um, the second thing is your race. Now, you live in a fantasy world. How boring would it be if the only people in a fantasy world would be humans? You can be, if you like, Lord of the Rings, you can be an elf, you can be a dwarf, you can be a hobbit, but you'll have to call yourself a halfling. Um, if you want to be a demonic-ish creature who now walks the mortal plane, you can be a tiefling. If you want to be someone who's not very humanoid and entirely fantastical, but you could be like a celestial angel-like being, you could be an Asimar. If you want to be like a demonic creature, I already went over tieflings, sorry. But if you like, there's a bunch. You can be a half orc. You can be uh, if you really like fire, you can be a fire elemental called a fire genasi. You can be a water elemental if you want. There's a lot. You can even be like a bird person, which is an arakokra. You can be a lizard person. You can be a snake
It
person.
could be
You
a
can be
loxodon, which is a elephant humanoid. So basically, it has the head and body of an elephant, but it stands on 2 feet.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of different races. In the past, race would have a strong influence on your abilities, but D&D has changed since then. People have, like, there's been conversation around how your race shouldn't dictate what you are good or bad. Therefore, your race is honestly flavor. What kind of character you want to create, only focus on that when you're making your race. You can uh, your what you're good at and bad at will be entirely dependent on your class and your background and some additional tweaks that you can make while making your character. So race, often you don't have to worry about, like, oh, is my race good at being this? Doesn't matter. Every race can be good at being everything. Um,
Yeah, so a quick example of that would be usually in stories you see dwarves are really great at drinking and fighting. That doesn't have to be true. Your dwarf can be amazing at magic and like art. That's fine. And same way, orcs are often depicted as, these warmongering people. That's a bit old fashioned. You can really make your fun because at the end of the day, people are all unique. Your races can also be unique. Not all humans are the same. Same way, not all orcs are. So
yeah. Uh, the next two elements are your background. Now, for example, if you are a wizard who is a tiefling, because apparently I love tieflings, you're a demonic entity who's become a wizard. But where do you come from? Are you a rich wizard? Like, are you a noble? Or are you a nomad? You've been traveling across the world and you don't really have a home. This is your history. This is where your character has come from. And this defines a little bit of who your character is, which leads me to personality. Your history, your class, your race, all of these things can inform the personality of your character. What are they like? Are they fun? Like, are they witty? Are they super serious? Do they like to paint? What are their quirks? What are their flaws? What is important to them? And all of these things make up a well-rounded character.
And if
An
you're
easy
just
way.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
I was saying if you're just starting out, right? Class and race, obviously the books will give you, and even the background and personality parts, all of that's available. But good way that I find when I'm first started out was think of a character in fiction you already like, whether you've seen them in a show, book, movie, whatever, right? Anime, and then see what parts of them you like and see if you can recreate. Chances are you can. It'll just take a little bit of time. But that's a good way to think of it. Like maybe you like Goku and you're just often hungry and like to fight. That's easy enough to do, right? And you because you like to fight with your hands, you're a monk, not a fighter. But maybe you like Gandalf, in which case you're an old, grumpy wizard who likes to smoke pipe and make. And that's essentially everything already sorted, right? Race, class. So easy thing is find fictional.
I was just going to say that, but exactly that. My first character was inspired by Hermione Granger. Anyway, okay. Um, the every character is good at some things and bad at some things, but this all of these abilities and what they're good at and bad at can be condensed into 6 different categories, and they're divided between physical abilities and I guess mental and personality based abilities. And they are, as you can see on the screen, strength, dexterity, constitution, and intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Every class in D&D specializes in 2 abilities. A wizard is very intelligent and very wise. A barbarian is very strong and very hardy. So they have like strength and constitution. Like this is a shout out to 8-bit for this example and shout out to Ira for half of this example. But the way you can think about the differences, right? Your strength is literally in the name. Like it's how strong are you? How badly can you like punch someone? How much will it hurt them when you hit them? That's your strength. That's your raw power. Your dexterity is how agile, I don't know how to say that word. Agile are you, right? How fast do you move? Can you dodge attacks easily? Can you parkour on the walls? Your constitution is how much can you take? Like how like as opposed to just being strong, are you internally strong? Like are you how do I explain constitution? Like literally the example, right? If you ate a bad tomato, would you be able to bear it? Like can your stomach be fine?
Constitution
Like you fall sick?
is your ability to take a hit different ways, whether it's by swallowing poison or if you stab. Is your ability to keep standing despite punishment. Essentially, what
Yeah. Intelligence is well, how smart are you? This and your smartness doesn't necessarily have to be like book smart, but your intelligence is like you're factually always good. Like you know your history, you know like the way arcane magic works. You are really good at investigating. Those are the things that intelligence provides. Wisdom makes sure that you're wise. You can see through people, right? You can tell if someone's lying. You can tell if like there's someone making a bad decision around you. You're mentally strong. If somebody tries to influence your mind and tries to you know like charm you, for example, because you're so wise, your mental fortitude is higher. You're able to resist stuff like that. And your charisma is, well, how charming are you? How are you a grumpy quiet person who doesn't like talking to anybody and therefore nobody likes talking to them? Or are you a flamboyant, like really suave person who's like got everybody at their feet because they're just so cool and they're just so charming? So these, like, think of your abilities as spectrums, right? You can be really bad at something, you can be average at something, or you can be really good at something. And the numbers that you assign to each of your abilities sort of denotes how good you are at it. um, that's abilities in a nutshell. the other important numbers that you will find in while playing D&D is your armor class. Your armor class is dependent on how dexterous you are. So your dexterity influences your armor class. Your armor class is basically how hard does somebody have to try to be able to hit you. For example, if that bartender wants to hit my wizard character who doesn't wear any armor, my AC is super low. My AC is like 12. All they need to roll is 12 or above to be able to hit me. But my brother, who is a barbarian, wait, that's a bad example. They're also not very armored. My paladin, okay, my paladin who wears like heavy full plate armor, has extra protection on their body. And therefore, their armor class is like 18. So the same bartender, if they rolled a 12, they would be able to hit me, but they would not come close to hitting the paladin. That's your armor class. Your hit points is like in any video game. If you've played a video game, you've probably come across hit points. It's how much life you have. Um, you start off relatively low, and as you level up, you gain more and more hit points. Your hit points is the amount of damage you can take before your character passes out and eventually maybe dies, which is a thing that happens. You can restore your hit points just like in any video game by drinking a health potion. And your XP is experience points. Again, if you played a video game, you know what XP is. You hit something, you do something, you gain XP. Now, different tables will treat XP differently. Some dungeon masters will be like, okay, you need 10,000 XP to be able to get to level whatever. Some people will be like, oh, you defeated this dragon? Cool. This is a milestone. You're going to level up now. And there's different ways of approaching how you level up, but it's good to know what XP is and confirm with your DM that, oh, how are we going to be leveling up in this game? What's the process you use? Some usually go for a story based, and some go on like a how many monsters have you killed or how many like social encounters have you finished sort of approach. So either it's numerical or it's story based. We're going to quickly look at a character sheet, and I'm going to drop a link to a character sheet in chat so that folks can take a look at it. Just going to stop sharing my screen for a second, or maybe I'll just share it. Where is it? Okay, here.
While Indrani sharing, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat about we have covered quickly.
Share screen.
Shit talkers in the chat
Can you all
so
see
that
this?
people can actually ask questions.
If you rejoin, you'll be able to see the stream.
Yep.
You can see.
Awesome, cool. So this is what a basic character sheet looks like for D&D, right? And I will be sharing form fillable versions of character sheets in the toolkit. And yeah, it was just mentioned, if you have questions, drop them in chat, we'll collect them and we'll answer them at once. But your character sheet is where you enter your the numbers based on the class, race, background, everything that you've picked. Again, you see the 6 abilities we talked about earlier, they go here, right? And say, for example, you have actually, you know what? I'm going to pull up an existing character sheet. Which one should I pull up?
But maybe do you want to close?
Okay, can you see my character sheet?
Okay, don't be intimidated. This is a very high level character.
Yeah, this is a pretty high level character sheet. Don't worry about it.
Start
But
with a very empty one.
Yeah. So when you start the game, you enter your base ability scores in the ability section, and that will calculate a modifier. For example, if you have a 14 in dexterity, that's going to give you a +2 to your dexterity. You don't actually use the base number as often, but you use the modifier that it gives you. Now, these 6 main abilities will influence your skills and basically everything else. for example, the skills that depend on dexterity, which would be acrobatics and stealth and sleight of hand, will have a +2 modifier. Every roll in D&D is the D20 plus or minus the modifier. So it's D20 plus or minus modifier almost always. So if I were to try to hide from someone, my dungeon master would be like, okay, now roll stealth. I would roll a d20 and I would add a +2 because that's my dexterity modifier. Saving throws are basically you trying to safeguard yourself against external influence. Um, my wizard cast fireball on this barkeeper, and now the barkeeper is caught in the area of the fireball. So if he wants to dodge that attack, the barkeeper needs to roll a dexterity saving throw, which also uses my dex modifier. The not my dex modifier, the barkeeper's dex modifier. So yeah, your main stats give you a modifier that apply to your skills, saving throws, etc. Something you have as a character is a proficiency bonus. Um, Say, for example, you're intelligent, right? You're a wizard, you're an intelligent character, but you're good at history, but you're really good at arcana. Like, you can tell who the fifth king of the world was or whatever, but like you can really, from the back of your mind, just be like, oh yeah, this is how you cast this spell. Um, that's why that's when your proficiency bonus comes into play, right? If you're proficient in something, you add your modifier, which is whatever. For me, it's a +5 over here, but you can then go and add your proficiency bonus on top of that. So your skill, instead of being +5, it would be +9. And these are high level numbers, but whatever. When you start lower, they'll be slightly lower than this. Your hit points, we just talked about it, your armor class, your initiative. Your initiative is usually calculated by your dex. So if you are a highly dexterous person, you can react quickly to situations. So in combat, when you are supposed to roll initiative, which is basically the order in which people react to things, the faster you are, the easier it is for you to react.
Can I pause this there? I feel like this is. I'm gonna check in. Are people following this? Because it can get a bit overwhelming. We can instead do a sample, like an example of things, so that it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
That okay. Let's just try that. Okay. So, Daddy, we can use Amara's character.
Sure.
Quickly pull up a combat thing. Throw you up against a.
Oh God.
Throw you up against a goblin.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
so,
this makes a lot more sense.
Okay, so for example, say I've described Amara is fighting. She was what do you call it? Exploring a dungeon, and suddenly out of nowhere, a goblin jumps in front of her. Like, Amara, why don't you go roll initiative?
I'm gonna roll it in chat.
Roll it in chat. That way, everyone can see what rolling initiative looks like.
So my initiative is +5 because whatever class I'm playing lets me use my intelligence instead of dexterity. So I'm gonna do a d20 +5.
Shouldn't have.
Okay, 16.
16. So Amara rolled 16. That's their initiative count. The goblin, I will say, rolled 15. So the goblin goes after Amara does. Amara, this goblin has a dagger ready to attack you with. What do you want to do?
Okay, because I'm a wizard, if he gets too close, I won't be able to take a lot of damage. What I'm gonna do is I am going to Misty Step. I'm gonna use a spell to teleport 30 feet away from it without letting it attack me.
Okay.
And now that's a bonus action. I'll use my action to cast.
Okay, let's pause over
Firebolt.
there. So essentially, when combat's going on, that's the only time these different things like bonus action, when roleplay is going on, it's just conversation, right? But what essentially happened was we decided the initiative order. And don't worry, even if you're a new player, the DM will guide you through this, so you don't need to memorize this. We decided initiative. We realized that Amara goes first, and then Amara gets to do essentially, I would say, 3 things or 4 things on her turn. So on her turn, she gets to move. Okay, she gets to take an action. She gets to take a bonus action. gets to take a free action. A free action is something like talking. She can talk to other people. The bonus action she's already used, which is she's going to Misty Step. So Amara, you move away from the reach. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've moved away from the reach of the goblin using my bonus action, and I'll use my action to attack it.
Okay, what are you attacking it with?
I will use Firebolt, which is a cantrip, so I don't need to use a spell slot. I can use it whenever I want.
All right. So go ahead. Roll. You roll Firebolt, I believe.
Yeah, I roll it. So it's a d20, but I have a +6 to my Firebolt attack. So I'm just going to use d20 +6.
So
does a 15 hit?
Yeah. The armor class of a goblin, the AC, which you guys heard about, even monsters have ACs, or goblins aren't monsters. They have ACs. It's a 15. So the 15 just hits, right? Anything that is the AC or higher is a success. So yeah, you do manage to hit. You can go ahead and roll damage.
Okay.
The damage is
My
what I subtract from the HP of the creature that she's at.
Okay, so a Firebolt does 2d10 points of damage at my level. That's 8 points of damage.
And a goblin, believe it or not, only has 7 points of health. So it is now a very dead goblin. And that's the end of that combat. I mean, unless there's a dragon hiding behind Amara that you know about, but that's where it.
Yep. All right. So that's a quick round of combat. And I am going to go back to the slideshow. Okay. So now that we've taken a quick look at a character sheet, I'll share the full version, and it might feel a bit overwhelming when you're filling it out, but like when you use tools like D&D Beyond, it makes it super easy. And it's the kind of thing, as you play, like the easier it gets. Like it'll be fine, trust me. Did you want to say something, Shubham?
No, carry on.
Okay. I'm getting like 20 million notifications. But based on what we've discussed so far, the way things go is the DM describes a situation. You want to do a thing. The DM is like, okay, if you want to do this thing, roll this. And if you meet the DC, which is the difficulty class, and you add your modifier or you subtract from your roll because of your modifier, and you end up with a number, the DM is like, okay, that either worked or it didn't work. And that's how the cycle keeps going, right? If it worked, great, the story progresses. If it didn't work, oh shit, somebody noticed you doing that, or something went wrong because you couldn't do it. And now the story still progresses, just in a manner that is different to what you hoped for. And as Ira so beautifully puts it on the slideshow, but if you're doing all these things, if you're talking, you're exploring, you're fighting, aren't you going to get tired? Yes. What do you do in those situations? You rest. Short rests and long rests are two different types of downtime. These are the moments where your characters are recouping. If they've been hurt, they rest and they regain their health. If they've used up all their spells, then they take a moment to quickly go through their spell book and get some of their spell slots back. If they've used up all their superiority dice, like this is a thing that fighters can do, I don't know. If they've used up a pool of something they can do, then resting replenishes that pool. A lot of the cooler things you can do in D&D are limited use. Imagine if I could just do thousands of damage, not thousands, but hundreds of points of damage all the time. That would kind of break the game. I can only do it a certain amount of times during the day, right? And once I've exhausted it, I need to rest before I can do it again. And that's where these two different types of rests come in. A short rest gives its own set of benefits. If you are low on health, you can rest for a few hours and roll your hit points and hit dice and just get some health back. If you do a long rest, you have 8 hours that you can just easily go to sleep in. Your health is completely restored, and everything you'd exhausted is now replenished. There is a little bit of suspension of disbelief. You have to just assume that because you're such a badass adventurer, you're going to be able to just sleep off a knife wound. Okay? It doesn't make sense, but that's the element of disbelief. Just because you're such a like hardy, seasoned fighter, or like a really magical wizard or sorcerer or whatever, resting overnight fixes you completely. Now, in you can role play as still having a scar, but for all mechanical purposes, you're good to go. Anyway, the next thing is moving and seeing. Depending on your race, you will either have certain like your eyes, the eyes of an eagle are probably better than the eyes of a normal human, right? So an eagle person, an arakokra, will have better eyesight. An elf who has lived underground all their life will be better at seeing in the darkness than an elf who has lived above ground and is used to the sunlight. So that your vision is affected by your race. Your speed is affected usually by your race. For example, if you're a hobbit, no, if you're a what's a tiny
Gnome.
person? If you're a gnome, your feet are small because you're like fairly short. Um, your movement speed is only 25 feet. But you're a human, you're taller, you have longer legs or whatever, you can move a bit faster. Your speed is 30 feet. But you're a gnome monk. Because you're a monk, you've trained yourself to become super fast. You can spend some sort of points. You can use your key points, for example, and use Step of the Wind, and that gives you what? The ability to dash, which means you can move up to 50 feet, like in one go,
And just
right?
stopping like hard. Okay, go on. Yeah, carry on.
I'm just saying, like, there are
There are
ways
ways to change your
to
speed for sure.
change your speed based on what class you're from.
Yeah.
Um, uh, uh, the amount of light dictates how much you can see. So if it's pitch darkness, only people with dark vision can see. In bright light, everybody can see. Dim light, there's again, your DM will probably run you through this as you play, but light plays a role in how much you can see. And terrain. Um, Difficult terrain is basically an environment where it is harder for you to walk or run or do something. For example, if I was, let's take Harry Potter for an example, the first one. When the devil's snare has snatched them all up and they're trying to find the philosopher's stone, that's difficult terrain. They like their hands and feet are like trapped, but they're trying to squiggle and move their way through it, but they're super slow and they're kind of stuck. So that is an example of what difficult terrain might look like. Difficult terrain can also be like um,
Just
you
very thick ice, like snowed in terrain, or like just very muddy ground. Or if, like, say you're fighting on a where it's mostly just water and swamp and it's hard to run. Like, you know how if you get stuck in a Mumbai flood, for example, you're not going to be running at the same speed you would if there wasn't any water. That's essentially difficult terrain. It's kind of creating barriers to how fast you can.
we already covered combat, so I'm just gonna skip
Yeah.
over this.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Spellcasting.
Okay. Hold on. We're going.
Yeah.
I want to just give everyone a moment. Questions, please
Yes.
ask them. You can
Please
also
ask.
unmute yourself and ask a question if you prefer,
Oh
or you
yeah,
can
do
type
that.
it in chat. We'll just pause over here before we get to spellcasting or to type. Um.
While we wait, can I just say
Okay.
that please play spellcasters. They are so much fun.
Sure. This actually is a good point. So, of course, play whatever you want and play it however you want. If
Oh
you're just
yeah.
starting out, and you're a bit unsure about like handling a lot of things, just for your first character, it's a good idea to go with a fighter or a monk because they're very straightforward in how, right? The first level one, when you start them, they're very simple. You don't have to do a lot of choosing things. So kind of very much just get what you've picked from the get go and you're fine. So you can always start with fighter or monk, and then after you played your one shot and you have an idea of how the game works, go ahead and make a new character and pick a wizard, pick a sorcerer. There's a lot of classes, and just going to see if there's any questions. How does the DM decide difficulty levels for everything? Okay, so difficulty levels are essentially divided between easy, medium, hard, and very hard, and then impossible, right? So anything between 1 to 5 is easy. Any average person can. 5 to 10, This is like normal, which is where you would maybe it's a bit of a challenge, but most people will be rolling back. Then 10 to 15, this is now essentially where what heroes are good for, right? Hero 10 to 15 is where it's like hard difficult. 15 to 20 is very hard. Then anything over 20 is generally considered a challenge that, very high level character. That's usually what defines difficulty. Yeah. If you're just running across a rickety bridge, I'll make up a number as a dungeon master. I'll be like, the difficulty is 11. But if you're trying to jump pillar to pillar across a canyon, I'll be like, okay, that's tougher. Your DC for that is 18. A much more impressive acrobatics roll. Remora Lord asks, can you upgrade your player weapon stats?
Wait, there's a question before that. Hold on.
Tell me what's the other question.
Sripad asks, how does a new table know your character is legit in game? So usually when you're playing with other people, you want to create characters that is at a similar, if not the same level as the other players. That way you're all evenly matched. The in-game sort of thing is probably going to be, if you're a new person on a table, they'll be like, oh, who the hell is this person? And there's a little bit of role playing, a little bit of backstory being shared. And the out of character understanding is that we're supposed to work together in this game. So when new players like join a table, the understanding is that eventually you're going to be my teammate. So from an out of character perspective, everybody works towards that goal, right? Obviously it's unrealistic to meet a stranger and be like, oh yeah, I trust you with my life. But out of character, you'll be like, okay, I can probably trust this character with my life soon enough. And you role play to get to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so usually, a lot of times a good place to start is if everyone's characters arriving at or something like that, it's something very comfortable. And you say, you're all sitting at the inn and there's only one table. Suddenly you all have to, as you awkwardly sip drinks, you're like, so what are you doing here? What are you doing? And maybe you discover, because your DM planned it out very that you're all looking for the same missing person. Now you're like, well, if you're all looking for the same missing person, maybe we should work together because something afoot. Now you are going to start team for the first time, and then maybe you will keep working as a team.
Yeah.
There was another question. Can you upgrade your player weapon stats as you level up? Yes. Your player stats go up at a few levels. So your ability scores like strength, constitution, you can improve those at certain levels by 1 or 2 points, and that will increase the modifier. Weapon stats, you don't necessarily improve the same weapon, but you can get cooler, better weapons and armor as you go along. That's usually what you get for completing a quest. Is like you get a cool armor, or you get weapons, or you get new spells if you're a spellcaster. So there is rewards, and those are the kind of things you get a reward, which is basically what RPGs. Randy, do you want to say?
Yeah, Batata Vada asked, I love that name. Essentially, each game will. Okay, so there's primarily two different types of games: a one shot or a multi shot game, or a full campaign. Now, one shots or like mini campaigns, which last, say, 2 to 4 sessions or maybe somewhere around that time, will have one storyline that you follow from beginning to end, and that's it. And when you join them again, you're probably playing a different story, different characters, whatever. A campaign is long term. You can play a campaign for years, have the same characters go from level 1 all the way to level 20, or and you guys explore the world. That a one shot is contained to a quest. A campaign is more open world in the sense that you can do a series of quests, but the world is open to you, and you do a long term storytelling in that.
Yeah, so think of it like this. Quest is we need to escape the Shire, or we need to make sure that we collect, like, say if you're playing an RPG, we need to collect these plants because that's what's going to help save this. A campaign is we need to stop the Dark Lord from destroying the world. That's usually the scale or duration that you might. It will take a lot longer to finish. Indrani, there's another question, which is how do you go about multi-class?
So my honest to God recommendation is that while you're new to the game, don't play one class and figure it, like see if you like it, try other classes separately. Multi-classing is picking more than one class. But the way it works is that every time you pick a new class, you start at level 1 for that class. If I'm a level 7 wizard, but I want to become a rogue, the next time I level up, I can take level 1 in rogue. My total level will be 10, but I will only have access to level 1 rogue stuff and level 7 wizard stuff. And the game itself has certain prerequisites for multiclassing. For example, if you want to multiclass in from a rogue into barbarian, you need to have at least 13 in your strength score to be able to do that. So the game also has certain requirements in place that you need to meet before you can multiclass. But trust me, don't worry about that now. It's if you have like a really cool multiclass idea, hit me up and I can help you like make it. But my recommendation is that pick one class.
Also, more importantly, because you're likely playing a level 1 or at max a level 3 character, at which point you can't really benefit from multiclassing. Most people will multiclass after they get to like level 7 or level. So you
Yeah,
have a while. It's not that you shouldn't do it. It's just that
yeah.
uh, it
Um,
yeah. There was one question I just wanted to clarify for everyone else. Are the campaigns and quests based on D&D books, or are they made up by the DM? There is options for both. There are campaign books that you can totally play. There's even books that are just full of solo adventures. There's also beyond the official D&D books, there's websites full of content that you can buy from independent creators, AC creators, who have written their own adventures. Or you can have a DM who just cooks up a story for you and then you play along. And that might be, closer to whatever you specifically want. Like if you go to a DM and we really want to play a Lord of the Rings style. Forget Lord of the Rings, right? We really want to play I'm trying to think of a Percy Jackson style. Okay. Then maybe that's what your table is all about, and you don't need to. The other questions: are classes predefined, or can we create a class?
uh,
Should I take
okay,
it?
yeah, go for it. Yeah, go
Okay.
for it.
Classes are predefined in that there are a bunch of existing ones. There's, I think, 11 or more at this point. But you can create a class, except it will take a lot of experience from you to be able to design a well balanced class because it's essentially something that needs to survive for 20 levels. And to make it unique and not something that's already done is a bit of a challenge. So it's called homebrewing when you create something of your own for your own table. Call it, you homebrew it. But otherwise, there's a bunch of classes. I'll quickly run through the list. There's fighter, barbarian, monk, rogue, wizard, sorcerer, paladin, cleric, artificer, um, and I'm trying to think of anyone. Oh, warlock, and I think that's everything. So yeah, there's just a lot of
I
classes.
will share like a list full of like classes and races and all of that for you
Yeah,
to pick from later. Uh, I think for spellcasting, right? I can save this. So if you are interested in creating a spellcaster, it's different for different spellcasters. So why don't you reach out? We'll do like a character creating session, and that's probably when we go over spellcasting because I feel like this might take up longer, and there's other things I want to cover for folks.
yeah,
But spellcasting, in a nutshell, is like spells are predefined things that you can do at a cost. Usually, it's like you have to say something, or you have to say something and move your hands in a certain gesture, or you have to use like a diamond to channel a certain spell, right? So it's verbal, somatic, and material. These are the three elements that you need to different degrees in order to cast a spell. Spells are of different levels. So a spell can be a cantrip, which means that you can cast it whenever you want without any charge, and you can keep doing it without needing to rest. Or they can range from level 1 to 9, which means that, and in increasing order of power. And as you level up, you gain access to more spells, to higher spell levels, stuff like that. Spell levels are not the same as character levels. This is a thing that is super weird, but something you should just know is that spells only go from 1 to 9 or 0 to 9 if you count cantrips, and characters grow from 1 to 20. So it's not a direct scale, okay? You should just keep that in mind. Yeah, so spell mechanics, I'll help you out individually if you need it, but yeah, spellcasting's super fun, but complex. Okay.
There are more questions. Do you want to field those? Or
I think before we field questions, I want to touch upon this.
okay,
We've talked about D&D for a hot minute.
Yeah. So I'll just ask chat questions about D&D and more stuff. We'll come back to this. So hold your questions, otherwise we'll keep track of them, and then come back to them.
Yeah. Just keep your questions to go, but just let's quickly talk about other tabletop role-playing games. D&D is a TTRPG, but it is not the only TTRPG. It is the most popular one, and that's probably why most of you are here, which is great. But know that there are other kinds of tabletop role-playing games which serve different purposes, which can scratch different edges. Like I've mentioned some on screen. D&D is primarily fantasy, right? It's medieval Tolkienian fantasy, and like that's what D&D specializes in Dungeons and Dragons. That's what you get. But what if you want to play in space? You are a space pirate, for example, or if you're like a superhero. There are different games that allow you to explore different types of stories. They all have the same basic function. It's collaborative storytelling that has a mechanic of randomness, whether it's dice or playing cards or coins or anything. But I just want to implore that you try D&D. D&D is great. I play it every single week. But know that there are other things. The West has a problem where D&D has become this monolithic thing that like if you think TTRPG, D&D is the only thing that comes up. But because our country is like new to this in a way, there's like just a fraction of this country, like a minuscule amount of people have gotten into this hobby here in India. I think it's cool for us to try to not have the same pitfall as Western countries have made, right? So look at other tabletop role-playing games. Now, if you like sci-fi, you should try Starfinder. You should try the Expanse RPG, which is based off of that Amazon show / the books. If you like superhero movies or comics, play Masks. In fact, we have an open table on our Discord server, which means all of you, if you take the superhero role from campaign roles and drop a message in that channel that unlocks Heroes Lair, you're probably going to be able to come play Masks in a fictional version of Mumbai called Purva City, where we are all teenage superheroes trying to save the world, right? If you like urban fantasies, try playing City of Mists, which is a world where there is supernatural creatures and elements, but normal people can't see it. You are special because you're one of the supernatural creatures, and that's what you explore. If you like cyberpunk, try Shadowrun or try the cyberpunk RPG, which is far better than the video game. If violence is not your cup of tea, you're like, why do I don't want to play a game where I'm killing monsters and I'm killing other creatures or fighting. Play Wonder Home. Reach out to 8-Bit Logic on the server. He will make sure that you get to play Wonder Home. If you want to play comedy, try Honey Heist. Honey Heist is a game where you're a bunch of bears who are trying to steal a pot of honey. If you want to play a horror game, try Call of Cthulhu. It's based off of Lovecraftian horror. If the last section, especially because it's Pride Month and we have a lot of members on our server who are queer and from the LGBT community, there are games that are created to explore queer storytelling. Try those out. Try playing Queers. Try playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Yes, that's a real game. Try playing Monster Hearts. Just remember that different genres exist, and there is a TTRPG for almost any genre that you can think of. In fact, if you like Avatar, the Nickelodeon show, there is literally an RPG set in the world of Avatar where you can be a firebender, airbender, waterbender, whatever. You can even be like just a guy who's annoyed by all the benders and has a boomerang. You can totally be Sokka if you wanted.
Yes, I just wanted to add. Think of it like you don't like all the kinds of films that ever come out, or you don't like all the books that come out, but there is a genre of books that you enjoy. TTRPGs are the same. Not everyone's going to work for you. Maybe you will try D&D and it's not for you at all, but there is something else for you, and usually it's just a Google away, right? You can be like, I really love stories and I want to explore a good romance and I don't want to get into Google that and you will likely find a game designed especially to role play romance. And there'll be people on the server who will want to play, so make sure you post about
Yeah, speaking of which, I promise we'll get to the questions right after this. We have a bunch of great dungeon masters and game masters on our server, and we're gonna spend the next couple of weeks running games for all the new people who've joined. And it's not going to be limited to D&D, even though there will be D&D games. So make sure you grab the game announcement role from server roles, which I'm going to link to, and pick up the game announcement and adventurer roles. When you have these roles, you'll be able to participate in any games that get run on the server. And I will specifically make sure that anytime there's a newbie friendly game that's going to be run, uh, that people hear about it on announcements. But yeah, uh, there's going to be a bunch of amazing games that people are going to run on the server. Stick around, play those games, play D&D, play every other TTRPG that you come across, and yeah, just have a great time. I will share now a little toolkit which covers safety tools and also gives you like a few links that you can use to create characters, run games, read about D&D and other TTRPGs and whatnot. And I'll share that with you right now. But we're just gonna deal with some questions.
All right. Let's get out. Indrani, can I get a video so it's not just my
Sure, I can stream my face. Oh right, he was streaming this.
Won't the video mess with the 25 people limit?
Oh, it might just.
Oh, it might. I'm gonna turn it off.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, I'll ask.
Falk
I've noted
is
down
our
the question.
resident server tech support.
The back end of the server.
Yeah.
There we go. I just saw you guys turn on video and I'm just like, oh boy.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. I noted down the questions. So somebody asked, are the campaigns and quests based on D&D books or are they made up by the DM?
I think we covered that one.
Oh yeah, sorry, my somebody asked, how do we start character creation? How do we decide the points?
All right. So two simple things. Sorry, there's someone who has noise coming. Yeah. Okay. So, character creation. The simple thing is, if the first thing you want to pick is like class and a race, and that's kind of easy to do because you just want to think about: do I want to be fighting things with swords and weapons, or do I want to be casting spells?
A bunch of people joined today because of Rohan Joshi's post.
Shripad, sorry, I can. Your audio keeps unmuting. Okay, so where was I? Character creation. Yeah, all you need to do is think about whether you want to be fighting something or casting spells. That's the main difference, and then pick a class and a race, whatever race you want. Don't worry about it. And when you do that and you go to the rules, it will tell you what's the ideal choice. So if you want to play it safe first time, it will tell you, hey, if you're playing a wizard, make sure you have high intelligence. So whatever points you want to, the highest points you have to allocate, you will add that to your. And then the second one, maybe you'll add to your wisdom, constitution. And it basically, the book actually guides you through level 1 character creation by just telling you ideal choice. That's a good place to. The other thing is, if you're joining a D&D game over here, the DM will probably was that the full question? I think.
How do you assign character points? I can field that one. I mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but different characters specialize in different abilities. A rogue is specializes in dexterity and intelligence. So if you were to play a rogue and you wanted to play a conventional rogue, you would give the most amount of points to dexterity, the second most amount of points to intelligence, and distribute the rest depending on how you want to play the character. You don't always have to follow this, but the game itself tells you what your top two stats, your more like your important stats are. Um, there are different ways of rolling, different ways of assigning numbers to characters.
Let's just do
There
one.
is
Sorry, assigning. I thought you were rolling abilities. Sorry, I didn't.
oh no. Yeah, so you can either use something known as point by, standard array, or manual, and I'm going to show you what that looks like because it's easier to explain that way. But rolling basically means you leave it entirely up to chance. You're going to roll to see how much of each stat you have. And that means you can drastically get like different results. You can either be like really strong or really weak, and you can have like these extremes. Alternatively, you can just use something known as standard array, which will give you like a certain amount of points, like different numbers, and you assign each number to your abilities. I'm going to show you right now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Why don't we pick like a character?
Okay.
Like just pick a pop culture character that you like, and why don't we assign ability scores to that character?
Let's go with Legolas, because I feel like more people will know Legolas.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Legolas is a ranger. Is that okay? No, not a ranger. Forward rogue ranger.
Go with rogue. I think rogue comes close.
Sure. So Legolas uses like he fights from a distance. Is very light, very like moves quickly, I would say, right? So if I had standard array and I had 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15 different, like these are the numbers I could assign, I would assign 15 to Legolas in dexterity. I would say he's also fairly like
he's very intelligent, so I would
yeah.
say, or
I would
actually
give
perceptive. He's actually very perceptive.
so wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom.
So 14 in wisdom because he's very perceptive. I don't think he's very strong.
He's actually not
like,
strong at all. Yeah.
So would I say 8 for strength?
Yeah, go for 8. That's
okay.
He's comparatively very charismatic. These ones you can basically fill out how you see Legolas. Do you think Legolas is charismatic or off-putting? Then you choose whether you want 13.
I'll say he's charismatic, and I'll say he's more intelligent than he is like
able to take a punch. He's not really the type to take a punch.
So that would, at least in our minds, be what Legolas's stats would look like. Now, because Legolas is an elf, he would have like because he's an elf who's like trained himself in I don't know, like hiding or something. He would have like a +2 to his dexterity as his racial bonus, which would make his total 15 plus 2. And if 15 plus 2 is 17, then his modifier would be +3. Does that give you guys a good idea of what like character creation might look like?
Well, it was going well, but then I was wondering why. Just go to race and class, right?
Sure. Oh yeah. Why don't I change my this character? Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Elf.
So you Legolas.
He's a wood elf, right?
Yeah, let's go with wood elf.
Change my race.
So wood elf, basically, these are the things they have.
Sorry.
Yeah, fine. So dark vision, they can see well at night. Keen senses, like Legolas is able to see far away and sense things. So that's that. Fey ancestry. You notice how Legolas isn't affected by magic that easily, because he has Fey, which is fairy ancestry life, right?
Yes.
Trance. He doesn't really need to sleep. He can essentially just meditate for 4 hours and call that a long rest.
And so as a part of your race, if your DM allows you to like choose your origin scores, I would put that +2 in dexterity. Just because. Like usually races have the like preset ability score increases, but you can ask your DM if they let you change it and change it to fit your character. And that way you don't have to worry about if the race is good for the class. Doesn't matter that way.
Yeah, you can go on to the next one because I don't think. And then
I should change my
class.
character. I'll just.
Could have created a new one, but it's fine. You panicked.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Just changed it to level 1. You'll
God damn it. All right.
All right. Change class. Don't have a bard away. So bards, by the way, are essentially artists, musicians, performers who use the ability to create art as a source of their incredibly charismatic. But that doesn't mean they're always confident. Because I mean, how many artists we know who aren't confident but are actually very good at what they do? All right.
Rogue.
So we're still making Legolas. He's a rogue, and he's a rogue because he's all about having this kind of skill with a dexterous tool, right? He's not going to swing a heavy axe. He's going to use a lightsaber, or he's going to light saber, not a lightsaber, or he's going to use a fencing sword, or he's going to use a bow and arrow. So rogue makes more sense than a fighter. Aragorn is a fighter. Gimli is a fighter. Gandalf is a wizard.
Isn't Aragorn like a ranger? Anyway, semantics.
Go on.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, so but again, the original question was how do you choose your ability scores, but that's how, right? You assign them based on your like what you want to create and your base class based on what your top 2 abilities are. Anyway, I'm gonna recreate this character later, but
all right,
yeah.
So anyway, and also just remember, right now the whole point is if you walk away from any of this thing, let me just do a TLDR version of whatever you learn. Okay, in D&D, it comes down to roll a d20 and add a modifier for whatever you're trying to do. Roll high enough, you succeed. If you don't, you fail, and the story goes on. The collaborative storytelling experience, you, the players, and the dungeon master. That's essentially D&D. Okay, and everything else about how to create a character, which class and race to pick, you'll try and learn, because sometimes you'll think that you want to play a wizard and then you'll be like, this is so much work. I rather play a warlock, right? And that's fine, and you can do DM, and every DM who will be running a game will usually know enough to guide you through it. That's partially their job, is to learn how to play a game, especially if they have kind of created a game for players. If they have created a game for veteran players, maybe they don't want to do that, but then and then that's about D&D. And then if there's anything else you take away from this whole conversation, that different type of tabletop role-playing game for all of us. Not everyone has to play. Your first experience playing it isn't great. Don't worry. Don't leave. Don't panic. Look for something else. See what didn't work for you and find that instead. Okay. Any other questions? Falk, are there any other questions that we missed?
Somebody asked, are there any rules, limits on abilities on a new class can have, or can they define it as they see fit? And I think you answered part of that.
Essentially, the rule books, the D&D rule books have a lot of guidelines on how to create anything from scratch. You want to create it and still keep it balanced. And you can use that to an extent to create something of your own. Generally speaking, that's considered a bit of an advanced thing to do. And the challenge with balancing it is that it's about making it fair for other players. Yes, you could totally create a class that just gives you all the powers at level 1, but then everyone else is going to be really bored playing around with you. It's going to be like when Gandalf the White appears and you're like, okay, I guess he's going to do everything. And that can be a bit boring for everyone else. So it's about keeping it balanced so that everyone is unique, but they are also fighting at the same level, or playing at the same.
I dropped a PDF in. Are there any more questions? Sorry, ask them.
I think we're good. Somebody asked where can they find adventure books, and then how does a DM go about reading them? Do they read the whole book beforehand, or are they also like kind of just going through it and
right?
playing the campaign at the same time.
So yeah, I would even if you're a new or veteran DM, I would suggest read the whole book, especially if it's one campaign. Just read it once. You don't need to memorize it, but it's a good idea to know what's happening from start to end, because that way you will have a general idea of thing, right? And then every session you will plan just the section that's coming up. You don't have to. There's a lot of different resources, and honestly, if you just there's just so many resources. But D&D Beyond is one. Drive Through RPG is another one. Itch.io is another one. All of these will have different adventures and classes and all these things that you can either buy, or there's some of them which will be pay what you want, which means essentially you can get it for free, or you can tip them an amount if you're comfortable. And yeah, and a DM can also cook something up of their own, and that's also up to you guys as what you are there for. Cool.
Before we again, feel free to ask questions, but I'm gonna quickly I shared a PDF in Fireside Chat, and we will throw it up in resources as well, and I'm gonna quickly go through it and show you what it has. And I'm welcome to like please tell me if there's something I should add to this, and I will go ahead and do it. It's a basic PDF. It'll tell you what a TTRPG is. It will link to the the presentation that Ira made, and it has a bunch of other resources. Quickly, the first one is called D&D TLDR. It's one of my favorite things on the internet because it's basically like literally too long, didn't read what is D&D, and it just covers making characters, basic overview. It tells you what different races are, different classes, and it'll tell you exactly what it's good at. And it's a bit reductive, I'm not gonna lie, but like if someone's like, I'm not gonna read 5 pages, you share this with. And fast character. This is a character generator. If you're like, I don't want to put in the time and effort to like figure out what the personality is, what the backstory is, this, that, I just want to play, use fast character. Put your name in, put like, what race you want, what class you want. And you don't even have to put all the details, just put some details. Anything that's left blank will be randomized, and click on create a character. It will literally give you a PDF of a pre-made, well-balanced character. That's fast character. Character sheet PDF. Now, this is a Google Drive full of form fillable PDFs for you to use for characters. The 3-page version is the full one. That's the one that spellcasters use. If you're not a spellcaster, you won't need it. Your DM will probably help you with this anyway. Lines and Veils, the document that you share with people to, make sure everybody's consenting. This is what the consent sheet looks like.
So yeah, you can see there's
you fill it out, you share it with your GM. That's Lines and Veils. Tabletop, virtual tabletops, Roll20, Foundry. These are platforms on which you can roll dice, have a map, put tokens. For playing D&D, you don't need any of it. You just need dice, and you can use like Google. Literally, you can Google dice. But if you want to add elements of like maps and this and that, feel free to use Roll20, stuff like that. The next one, number 7. I do not endorse that you use this. I will say this right now. I don't think anybody should use it, but it exists. It's this website called 5e Tools, and it has
everything.
All the D&D 5e stuff out there that has been published by the original game maker, Wizards of the Coast, is on this website. Again, I don't think you should use it. I think you should pay for it. But if you wanted to use it, the website is 5e.tools. And it has all the races, all the classes.
This was being streamed, but it's.
I don't think you should use it. Anyway, the next thing is you don't have any dice? Don't worry about it. You don't have to buy physical dice. If you can literally just go to Google and it will give you a dice roller. If you search for Google Dice Roller, it shows up. If I wanted to roll a d20, I would do that. If I wanted to clean the table up. Anyway, free dice. You don't have to pay for dice. But usually if you're using Roll20 or Discord, it will allow you to use stuff on there.
Yeah, we have a bot on Discord, which is Avray, and If you just type !help, it will tell you all the commands so that you can roll dice in Discord itself.
The next thing is one of the best parts about creating a character is being able to see what they look like. And for that, I recommend Hero Forge. Hero Forge is an online service where you can create custom miniatures, right? And you can color them as well. And you can use that as a photo, as a token. You can print it out. This is what it starts like, and then you like customize it and give it different types of heads, different types of bodies, different types of clothes, whatever. And finally, you start to color it. And you can just take a screenshot of it, save it, or like if you want to support Hero Forge and you want to like get a 3D printed version of this model, you can buy the STL file, which is the object file, and you can have it 3D printed from a local 3D printer if you want. Or you can pay them to print it for you. That's another option. The next thing is Picrew, which is this really beautiful website that has allowed a bunch of artists to create like assets that let you make characters. Poicon is, for example, one of my favorites. You basically just select, it's like a character maker, right? And you complete it, you save the photo, and that's it. And this is not a fantasy one, but there are fantasy versions on Poicon, on Picrew. You just have to look for it. And the last resource is this server. Ask questions, find like anything you need. People here are willing to help. Like it's crazy how nice everybody here is. So anytime you have questions or you're stuck with something or like whatever it is, just drop a message in chit chat. Somebody will help out. If you are a first time dungeon master, pick up the DM role. Don't feel scared. Pick it up. We have a specific channel for dungeon masters to like talk to each other, ask questions, stuff like that. There is a resources section in the workshop on the server. Use it. Just yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on the server. Make sure you use all of it because most of it is really helpful. And the most important thing about any TTRPG is having people to play with. Now, playing IRL is tricky because there's like you need to establish a level of trust. What I recommend is if you're planning on playing in real life with someone, play with them online first, see if you feel safe and comfortable, and then do an IRL thing. Or you can just run virtual games, and that's what people on the server do. We have a game announcement section. If you go there, you'll see so many games that have been posted over the last many months. Sign up for games, try new games out. Don't just stick to D&D. And the next thing we have is a 5e cheat sheet. This is a PDF link that 8-Bit shared. And then this is all about safety tools. All of this info that's here is from Shubham and 8-Bit. They're the ones who like consolidated all this info. You can find it on our server in the wiki channel as well. But yeah, that's everything. That's the toolkit. Let me know if you think I should add something to it. Happy to. Yeah.
Indrani, if I
Yes.
may, there is a form
Yes.
that I believe you need to be working on. If you can go do that, and I'll feel that. Yes, there's anything else.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there
What
anything else you need
what
to
do I need to
cover?
be working on?
A form that you were going to share?
Yeah, no. I'll share that form right away.
So while Indrani is sharing that, any questions? Any questions about anything? D&D, TTRPG, RPG, Daisies and Dragons. What's going on over here? What's this server all about? Go ahead. We'll take your question.
And let us know if this was helpful. I'm hoping to do more of these, hopefully with less technical difficulties for any new people who join. So if you have any feedback on how we can do this better, let us know.
Such a brave.
I am.
Keep dreaming. I see several people typing. That's good. I have no idea what. Oh, Falk asks, Melody, itni chocolatey क्यों है? I
Oh.
genuinely don't know. I've never had Melody.
Okay, before you folks get distracted, I am going to share a form. So this form, guys, is basically like a quick form that you can fill out, and it'll give us an idea of who wants to be included for a newbie friendly game. And
Okay.
oh, which message?
The one that you just sent, that form is not ready yet. I thought.
Oh,
Yeah, no, don't worry. It's fine. We'll share it in a bit. We'll announce it so all of you guys can act.
oh, my bad. That's the one
There's
that I
some
got.
miscommunication. Don't worry. We have this. We have professionals, guys. We do this for a living. Totally. All right. Yeah, no questions. Then we'll call it a day. We can stop here. And again, the moderators are here. So
Oh, sorry. Before you guys go, anybody who in chat who has a green name, guys, you need to grab the game announcements role and the adventurers role. That's how you get notified when future games happen, and you get to like be able to talk in voice chats and stuff. So go to server roles, grab those roles, because if you're just a spectator, that's like, oh, I'm just visiting the server. I'm not sure if I want to stick around. But if you do want to play, you should really get those two roles. And that is and yeah, I see some green names going purple, so that's good.
sure. We will. So Diablo, the document that we are sharing, the community one, that will have all the important links.
I will share a full version right now, and I will pin it in resources.
Yeah, pin it in.
I'm gonna quickly add it. Hold on.
Oh, that reminds me. The Twitch stream is